he's a super reliable target. But if Elijah Moore is the real deal, and I mean, Elijah Moore is so good at football that it made A.J. Brown cry. I don't know if you saw that clip. Did you see it? So good at football that he cried.
Oh, I know. I'm interrupting the video. Wah. But if you're enjoying this video and want to see more fantasy football and DFS content like it, please just take 2 seconds, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. Really does go a long way for us, and we'd appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and now back to the show. Hello, and welcome to episode 370 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, and today we have a very, very, very special guest. This is a young man. He's one of the oldest friends of the show. He's been innovating, I would say, a data-driven approach to fantasy since the old Pro Football Focus days. He's proudly representing the Virgin fantasy community extremely well on national television all the time. Just signed a new contract with ESPN, hashtag how rich. It is, of course, the one and only Mike Clay of ESPN. Mike, how's it going, buddy?
It's going great, man. It's good to be back on the show with you. And I was hoping to chat with my good friend Evan Silva as well, but he's naturally having computer issues. Convenient when I'm on, but I'm, as we talked about, we're not surprised, right? So
you guys aren't going to believe this, but Evan could not get his technology set up to work. He's actually been nicknamed Mike the Tech Lord, hashtag Tech Lord, if you want to refer to him going forward. I want to say, Mike, you're doing a great job at ESPN. I don't know that I could do it, man. You're speaking to such a wider audience, like a much more general audience, a less hardcore audience, people who actually have sex, not stone cold virgin fantasy people like listen to this or PFF or ETR or whatever. How have you adjusted, or how is it talking to such a general audience at ESPN?
Yeah, I've had to change my vocabulary a little bit for certain things. You're exactly right. It is a little tricky, right? Because you have the more casual audience, and it was an adjustment at first, but eventually, you understand that a massive percentage of the people playing fantasy don't really know what average depth of target is, and you have to try to, and that's okay. That's okay. We want as the amount of people playing fantasy, whether it's casual or hardcore, grows. That's good for all of us, and makes the game more fun. So I've adjusted a little bit. It took a little time to do that because I was peak nerd, when I first started. I'm still the resident nerd, I think, at our company, but absolute peak during the early days and the PFF days, everything, numbers and creating stats and all that fun stuff. But I think I do enough that I'm able to touch on both things, still invent the occasional stat and work with advanced stuff like that, but also having more of that casual info out there as well. So I like to think I balance both, but the audience to decide for themselves, I suppose.
Yeah, no, and it's like, I hate when people are like, oh, this guy's not available in this league. It's like, you guys don't realize that Matthew Berry and Mike Clay are talking to John from accounting, who's in a 10-team league with his buddies. And yeah, some guy that was drafted in our league might be unowned in, an office league. Like, people just don't realize. So keep fighting the good fight, man. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. Doing what I can. I mean, just today I was tweeting, or I put out my new rankings after the draft, right? And someone who clearly is just not paying attention at all. Again, is how some people just don't pay attention at all, but then they see the first time they take a look, something catches their eye, and they're like, "You're stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. How could you?" But it was like Zeke Elliott having him around 20th at running back. I mean, he thought that blew this guy's mind, right? He's like a Cowboys analyst, or I don't know, as a blog or something like that. Man, wait till you see ADP, because that's where he's going to be. That's just the nature of the beast, right? But as a lot more casual people playing aren't following that all off season, catch that, people are surprised. So,
and I just say, like, we're trying to do stuff to grow like the top of the funnel, like grow the audience and reach more casual people, like we're on YouTube, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram, we're trying. But what Mike and Matthew Berry and Field are doing are actually like bringing new fantasy people into this space. So shout out to them. Anyways, on today's show, we're going to talk about rookie landing spots. We all know talent is important, but landing spot to me matters so much as well. How does a player fit a scheme? How good are his teammates around him, how sharp is the play caller, etc. Before we get into it today, wanted to let everyone know that it is almost season-long draft prop season. I'm referring to props like, Jalen Hurts over under 3,500 pass yards. We'll be betting these through our Draft Kit Pro, which is coming out very soon. But anyway, my point is that we will be betting across many different books. You need money on all the books for this. And the thing is, you also get bonuses on these books when you sign up, often big bonuses. To see the bonuses for your state, go to establishtherun.com/offers. Again, establishtherun.com/offers. I know. I'm interrupting the video. Wah. But if you're enjoying this video and want to see more fantasy football and DFS content like it, please just take 2 seconds, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. Really does go a long way for us, and we'd appreciate it. Thank you for watching, and now back to the show. All right, let's get into it here, Mike. I think, from an opportunity standpoint, the landing spot Drake London got is incredible. They have no wide receivers. I believe number 2 wide receiver right now on this team is likely Almighty Zacchaeus, which is just totally insane. Obviously, they have Kyle Pitts. They have quarterback issues, but man, Drake London could command 7, 8, 9 targets a game right out of the gate. As a rookie, I think the opportunity is known. What about just the scheme and how Drake London fits in Atlanta? What'd you think of this one?
Yeah, and it's interesting because you could follow some history here of wide receivers picked in the top 10 alone, just focusing on that. And they've been money in the bank over the past decade. I mean, I think of the guys that have stayed healthy, that have been picked in the top 10, Tavon Austin's the only one that hasn't been a top 30 fantasy receiver. So that's already good and plays into his hand along with Garrett Wilson. But I mean, you touched it. He's stepping into a situation here where they're going to have to throw him about a quarter of the targets. And as long as he's healthy, he's going to be a must start in fantasy. Obviously you could push back and say, well, the quarterback situation is poor, and that is true. It absolutely is. But if he's getting 8 to 10 targets a game or whatever it may be, it's not going to matter much. He's also 6'4", so he fits in there near the goal line. Kyle Pitts is bigger, but he had 1 touchdown last year, and that was a little fluky, right? He had more opportunity than that, but it's not like he was a major force near the goal line. I think they will be drawing up some plays for Drake London. You see that often with bigger wide receivers. It's not as strong of a correlation as it used to be between, height and weight and touchdowns, even usage near the goal line. But, as more and more star receivers are smaller in frame, but, you still have guys like Mike Evans, right, who's just been dominating end zone targets and touchdowns, regardless of the quarterback over the past almost decade. So, I think it's a no-brainer wide receiver pick for Atlanta in the first round. He's going to play every down. He's going to be busy. He's going to be work near the goal line. It's London, it's Pitts, and it's Patterson. That's their offense right now. So love it. Yeah, absolutely.
We have a strong projection on Drake London right now, 68th overall in our initial rankings, ahead of guys like Tyler Lockett, Devontae Smith, and obviously guys like Thielen, Renfro, guys like that. So yeah, I mean, we're expecting big things for Drake London. Let's go to Garrett Wilson. Go ahead.
No, I'm with you. I'm just agreeing. I was looking at my projection at the same time. I'm a little higher on catches, probably a little lower on yards, but I'm with you. I mean, he's borderline top 30 play.
Okay. Garrett Wilson one is interesting, man, because the landing spot I think is fine, but it's not fine if you think that Zach Wilson sucks. And I think there's like a pretty good chance that Zach Wilson just flat sucks. And I could be wrong. I'm no talent evaluator. I could be wrong. Last year was not a great situation offensive line wise. They had a ton of injuries. Wide receiver core, but man, it's scary. And they also, it's not like they don't have anyone else to throw to. I mean, they have a pretty good offense at this point at the skill position players. So I'm kind of wishy-washy on this landing spot for Garrett Wilson. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I just said, though, I'm trying to chase that history a little bit and the pedigree and say, okay, he's a top 10 player. So what we've seen over the past decade with guys like that is he will be featured regardless of the situation. He will be a featured player. And you kind of want to invest in that in fantasy, obviously in the middle rounds. But you're right. I mean, it is low key, a pretty good spot here with, or a pretty deep group here with Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, even Braxton Berrios. So they paid to bring back as well. And they bring in the 3 tight ends and you have Hall and Carter. Carter, I still think will be involved out of the backfield. And you're right. If Wilson is below average or just terrible, it could be problematic for this group. So I'm definitely higher on London, and I could see you leaning towards someone like Treylon Burks, maybe even Chris Olave as well. So I'm with you. I'm in the same spot. He's a super reliable target, but if Elijah Moore is the real deal, and I mean, Elijah Moore is so good at football that it made AJ Brown cry. I don't know if you saw that clip. Did you see it? So good at football that he cried. How good he is at football. So, I don't. Maybe he's the one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think about there's a couple situations, right? Like really quick, like Cincinnati last year, Jamar Chase comes in, takes the one job, right? And T. Higgins was the second rounder the year before, falls to number 2. Similar situation for the Jets, but then you go back to San Francisco, right? Ayuk was a first round pick. Debo was a second round pick. Debo was the guy that was the number 1. So you don't really know for sure. It could go either direction. I think you just kind of hedge the best you can and take a mid-round flyer, and that's how I'd kind of attack Wilson this year.
Yeah, I'll just go back to quarterback play. I mean, the thing about T. Higgins and Jamar Chase is you had Joe Burrow there, and you had and he's supposed to, and the target share gap between Jamar Chase and T. Higgins wasn't that great. Like I would call them 1 and 1A, but they could both be awesome because Joe Burrow was awesome. I'm just skeptical on that with Zach Wilson, but we'll see. Let's go.
For what it's worth, Burrow was a question mark last year too, right?
Sure.
So, and he made a huge leap. Wilson in the same situation. You're right, though. If this one could go south, another one could go north. One of these, I would think at least one of these second-year quarterbacks is going to make a gigantic leap, whether it's Lance or Fields or Lawrence or Wilson or Mac Jones even. We just don't know who it is. So again, in situations like this, I'm generally going to hedge on it.
Another rookie with quarterback questions is Chris Olave, who went to the Saints. I mean, I can't even believe some of this stuff that people are saying that the Saints gave up to get Chris Olave when it was said and done. I can't believe they did that. They must be very high on this kid. They do have quarterback questions. Obviously, I think Jameis is at least capable. I don't know. The way they played last year, though, like they didn't want to let Jameis cook at all. So what do you think about this landing spot for Chris Olave?
Yeah, it's just it's opportunity. I mean, I think even if Michael Thomas is there and extremely busy and part of that offense, there's still room for Olave, right? I mean, unless you think Marquez Callaway or Traquan Smith or Deontay Harris Hardy is gonna play a big role, Olave should still be an every down player right away. But you're right, one of the toughest positions in the entire, and I do them unit grades, right? Position by position, offense, defense. One of the hardest ones to do is quarterback for New Orleans, because we know what Jameis Winston has done in the past with all the interceptions and the aggressive nature. But last year, he was 5th in QBR, right? Like his advanced stats were really good. And you're right, they protected him a little bit, but still, he did his job. And if he plays at that level again for a full season, that should help move the needle forward for this team and maybe even put them in the playoffs. So it's a little bit of a tricky one. I think that you can view him kind of similar to London, target him as maybe a flex option out of the gate. But I'll tell you what, there's some upside here, because if Thomas, for the 3rd straight year has serious injury issues, Olave's their number 1, and he's actually not far off kind of where London is, right? I mean, it's Kamara who could be facing a suspension, and then it's the other guys I named. So it could be a path to, again, a huge target share right out of the gate. He was almost a top 10 pick. There's really a lot to like. So I'm in on him as well.
Yeah, we have Olave 98th overall. I think Michael Thomas, he's sat out for so long.
Yeah,
right. I feel like he has to be healthy at this point. If he's not, it's like a stone disaster. So I'm giving Michael Thomas a full season and having Olave 98th overall. I'm fine with that. But yeah, there's certainly upside if you think Michael Thomas won't be healthy. Let's go to Jameson Williams. So, obviously the big question here is ACL tear. Like, remove that for a second. I actually think this is like a nice landing spot, man. This offense is going to be good, and I don't think their defense has improved enough to where they're going to avoid shootouts. And Jared Goff sucks, but man, Jared Goff is capable of 300 yards and 3 touchdowns in games. And so I like this spot for Jameson Williams. Gets to play a lot of games in a dome, both at home and when they play Minnesota, although So yeah, what do you think about Jameson Williams?
Yeah, so he's a little tricky, right? National championship, has the ACL injury, and so you would expect with that timetable, maybe it isn't ready for the first month of the season. It wouldn't surprise me if there's a couple guys on that list: Chris Godwin, Michael Gallup, Logan Thomas. There could be a few guys, John Mechie, another rookie, guys who may miss a few games, and we're just going to have to track them throughout the offseason. And as we get positive reports, their ADP will spike, and vice versa. So we'll keep an eye on that. But look, once he's healthy and on the field, I do expect him to play an extremely sizable role right away. And you're right. I mean, it's kind of out of nowhere. I mean, you could kind of see it building up last year if you looked at their offensive line, but the Detroit Lions offense, aside of quarterback, is potentially a powerhouse, right? A top 5 O-line, maybe a top 2 or 3 O-line for sure. Swift in the backfield, Hawkins in the tight end. And then you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, DJ Chark at wide receiver. I mean, that's your core right there. I mean, that's a really, really, really good young offense. So there are some mouths to feed here, no doubt. I mean, he could step in there and be fourth in targets, but the guy is such a playmaker that it might not matter. A lot like a Will Fuller, Deshaun Jackson, maybe doesn't even need a massive target number to make a fantasy impact to be on that wide receiver 3 or flex radar. And look, if he's the real deal right away, he'll step in and be a fantasy must start. I mean, you think about an Odell Beckham, right? He missed all that time, all that offseason work, missed a first couple games of his career, and was the number 1 scoring fantasy receiver as a rookie. So once he was on the field. So, just the skill alone and the playmaking for Williams makes me want to, consider him in, mid to late rounds. I think you definitely have to deduct a little bit for the injury and for the quarterback situation. But I do agree with you. I think that Goff in a situation like this with good protection and good skill guys can get the job done. And I think that'll be enough for Williams.
Yeah, I hate tying up money for 9 months, but I currently have bets on Dan Campbell, Coach of the Year, 60-1. Ooh. Lions to win the NFC North, 12-1. Lions to make the playoffs, plus 480. And Lions over 6 wins. So what could go wrong when just tying up money for months on the Lions? Almost a year.
Yeah, as long as the quarterback situation is not a disaster, I think you're probably okay on a few, at least the over 6 wins. The defense is kind of in rough shape, but they added some pieces there. So as long as it's okay, like it can be below average, right? Sure. Just don't be historically awful. Like remember the Saints during Drew, before they started to peak there late in Drew Brees' career. Like he was still playing, at an all-pro level, but their defense was historically terrible, like 2 or 3 straight years, and it crushed them. So just don't be that, Lions, and we'll be all right. We'll be okay.
Commanders reached, I think, for Jahan Dotson, but they acquired a player who was very productive at Penn State, despite bad quarterback play. We've talked about this. I think he wasn't maybe as fast as people thought that he would test. He's obviously not the biggest, but regardless of all that, I think the landing spot is just okay. Quarterback play projects to be slightly below average, I think. Terry McLaurin seems to want a new contract, but they'll probably give it to him. And I don't think he's going to hold out or anything. So what do you think of the landing spot for Jahan Dotson?
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought it was a little early. And you're right, the speed score there, a little underwhelming for Dotson too. So that was a little disappointing, but very productive player on the small side. And again, in terms of path to immediate guaranteed work, like some guys have, like a Treylon Burks or Drake London, someone like that, maybe even Christian Watson and Skyy Moore. I'm not sure on Dotson because you mentioned Terry McLaurin. We'll see on Logan Thomas. Again, he had the ACL and could miss a couple of games, but once he's back, he's going to be involved. We saw that last year when he came back from injury. You also have this 3-headed attack, I guess they're going to use in the backfield with J.D. McKissic. We know will be involved in obvious passing situations. But the big wild card here for Dotson, I think, is Curtis Samuel, right? And by all accounts, he's healthy. And if he's healthy, this is a guy that was near the top of the NFL in touches 2 years ago with Carolina. Yeah. Obviously reunited now with Ron Rivera and his old coaching staff, and he's going to play a big role. In fact, they could come out in week 1 with, if they have, Alex Armah in the field or a second tight end, they could come out with McLaurin and Samuel very easily, and Dotson kind of rotates in as the 3 and plays 60% of the snap. So, it's just a guy we're going to have to monitor his progress throughout the offseason. Long term, I think he'll be fine. Short term, though, I'm not seeing a potentially super high scoring offense and not necessarily a big target share. So I think I'm kind of lukewarm, at least for this year.
Yeah, my take is that, they don't think they can trust Curtis Samuel to stay on the field and to be productive, and I know they gave him a big contract a couple years ago. I know this is his old staff, so maybe it'll work out. But I'm more skeptical, I think, on Curtis Samuel than maybe other people are. He's still only 25 years old. He'll be 26 in August, so maybe I shouldn't completely give up on him yet. But man, last year was just like a total disaster for Curtis Samuel. And then for them to use a 16th pick, I think it speaks volumes of what they think about what they can get from reliability on Curtis Samuel. So we'll see on that. Someone who is not going to hurt for opportunity. The Titans give up AJ Brown. They immediately try to replace him with Treylon Burks. It's just like AJ Brown was up and down on the Titans. Julio Jones sucked on the Titans. Do we expect a rookie? And I like Treylon Burks. Do we expect a rookie to have immediate impact, even as the number 1 here for the Titans? What do you think of Treylon Burks' immediate outlook?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely like the potential target share, but do you like the target volume? And that's usually those are kind of two of the same things, right? But with Tennessee, not necessarily. And that's why AJ Brown would have a huge game once in a while with Tennessee and then would just completely disappear at times because there's just not a lot of pass volume here. They're the run heaviest team in the NFL. There's no indications that's going to change, especially with less experience at the wide receiver position. I mean, to your point, if they were going to throw it more, it would have been last season with Julio and A.J. Brown. I get it. Jones was in and out of the lineup, but there was no movement in that regard. They just kept running the football, even after Derrick Henry was injured. Still super run heavy. I don't think that's going to change here. I do like Burks a lot. He was one of my top 3 receivers on my board, which is, it was the case for a lot of people. He's big, really athletic. And again, he has a path to a big target share, obviously, in this offense. So, again, I like it long term. I think that he'll be fine out of the gate in fantasy because of the target share. I think it'll be enough to keep him in the flex conversation. But, does he have the upside of some of these other guys? Not necessarily in this offense, unless Tennessee just kind of, the defense falls apart, which has happened a couple times the past few years, and they have to throw the ball a lot. Also, keep this in mind, Robert Woods, another guy coming off an ACL. If he misses time, again, it's just going to guarantee Burks' role. I mean, they really don't have much else, so we're just going to have to keep an eye on Woods as well. Yeah,
I mean, this is kind of the argument that people make for dead zone running backs, right? Like, oh, well, we're not sure about the exact scheme. We're not sure about the talent, or maybe Mike's more sure of the talent than I am, but whatever. But what we know is there's projectable volume. But that's a really dangerous game for me to play when Treylon Burks is going to go in, like, I don't know, 6th, 7th round. Oh, the only reason we like him is because he's going to get volume. That's a dangerous game for me to play on Treylon Burks. So I'm okay with it, but we have him 62nd overall right now. I would probably have him a little bit lower, but we have him in like the Rashad Bateman, Mooney, Brandon Cooks type range.
Yeah, and I would say I'm generally going to follow pedigree with prospects over my own evaluation. Now, I'll move the needle a little bit based on what I'm seeing or how a player might be utilized in the NFL, like downgrading a Wan'Dale Robinson maybe because he's so small and you think he'll never be like a 10-target guy or something. But you can also get tricked on that because Kadarius Toney, that's the reason a lot of people didn't like Kadarius Toney last year. And now, his off-the-field stuff aside, he was a super, super popular, hyped-up asset in Dynasty down the stretch last season. So I do think, though, you can follow pedigree, learn from how guys based on their draft round or draft positioning, draft capital, whatever you want to call it, how they're used in the past, and then kind of apply that going forward. I think that's important. And that's why I can buy into a London and Wilson, maybe not as much guys we'll talk about later that, we're say day 3 picks, but with Burks, it's kind of mixed. He's in the middle of the first round, run heavy offense. He's big, a big target share. It's kind of a mix of a few things. So I think, again, 6th round, if he goes there, probably too early for me, but middle rounds, I think that's more palatable.
Let's talk about the Steelers. Steelers in the post-Ben Roethlisberger era are overhauling through Kenny Pickett, 20th overall. They also took George Pickens at 52nd overall. Yeah. I'm curious how you think they handle their wide receivers here. Which one of these 3 is likeliest to play in the slot out of Claypool, Pickens, Deontay Johnson, and how do you think Kenny Pickett fits in Pittsburgh?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Pickens was primarily perimeter in college, right? So I think I have it right in front of me, 87% perimeter, right? So you'd think they'll probably slide him into the outside and probably get creative with the other guys. Deontay Johnson, probably the most natural fit to move around a lot. And I'm sure that's what they'll do to try to manufacture touches for him. So, we'll kind of see how that plays out. I'm not sure it'll matter much. You're still going to see a lot of volume going to Johnson. You're going to see a lot of goal line work going to Claypool. I think they'll kind of get the issues corrected from last year. He still had, it's funny, he had like the exact same stats across the board his first 2 years, except for the touchdown conversions, right? That was the big difference between the first 2 seasons. So I think he's kind of an interesting post-hype guy this year. Then, of course, you had Pickens and Calvin Austin, too, who's another guy that's going to be pretty involved and can maybe play in the slot for them this season. So Pickett, the quarterback class is so tough, right? I mean, I almost feel like everyone is still kind of evaluating them how they did pre-draft, which is, these are guys like first-round talents that are going to steal these jobs away, and Sam Howell's going to take it from Wentz, and Ritter, he's going to take the job. I mean, most late day 2, day 3 quarterbacks are I say bust, but don't work out, don't turn into starters in the NFL.
Backups,
are backups, right? Yeah. So I think we have to kind of recalibrate our thinking on all these guys. Perhaps except Pickett, right? He was the only guy that went in the first round. I don't know if another team would have taken him in the first round, but that's where he went. And first round quarterbacks almost always by week 10 are starting. So I expect that. I expect him to step in and should be a better option than, say, certainly a Mason Rudolph and probably out of the gate Mitchell Trubisky. Honestly, it can't be much worse than last year. Just super conservative from Big Ben. The efficiency was terrible. I blame a lot of the low end efficiency. Even Deontay Johnson's per target was gross. Juju Smith-Schuster, same thing the last couple of years. It can't really be much worse than that. It was really, really bad. And I think the only thing that makes sense is that it was quarterback related. So I know it's not a great situation, but I think it'll be better. I think it's a fine landing spot for Pickett, and he'll be under center this season. Pickens, Pittsburgh has a great reputation for hitting on these day two wide receivers, and that's not something I'm going to ignore. But at the same time, you have Johnson, you have Claypool, you have Najee Harris, you have Pat Freiermuth. So he's going to be fifth in line out of the gate, no more than a late flyer in drafts.
For the record, Chase Claypool did go into the slot 149 times last year out of his 869 snaps. He's not incapable. I think Deontay does fit better there, but I would love to see Claypool in the slot more. I mean, I'd love to see it. Anyways, let's get to some of these high-powered offenses who took second-round wide receivers. Start with Christian Watson. I get that he has all the tools. I'm skeptical that he can just slide right in to this Aaron Rodgers trust tree or the scheme and be extremely productive. What do you think of Christian Watson's year one chances?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, he definitely helped himself at the combine. Just 6'4" with that great athleticism. Had one of the best speed scorers as well. He is 23 though, so I know that he played at a smaller school and doesn't have a ton of experience, but he also might be a little bit more polished, at that age. So we'll see if he kind of slides in there and plays a big role. I mean, not Velus Jones, age or polish, of course, at age 25, but maybe at 23 to open his rookie season, he'll be all right. So it's again, you're taking a lottery ticket here, right? With a guy like Watson and even Skyy Moore, right? It's a lottery ticket. You're saying, look, it's a great offense. If this guy is not very good, he's just going to rotate in with these other guys. It's not going to work out, whatever, maybe you cut him or sit him on your bench. But if he is good and he's their number one receiver, he could be a top 12 scoring fantasy receiver right away. I mean, if Aaron Rodgers just decides he likes Christian Watson and throws him 19 to 21% of the targets, which is 2/3 of what Devontae Adams saw, again, must start in fantasy and a potential league winner. So I think that's why there's reason to be optimism here. It's okay. Once you fill out your starting lineup, it's okay to get bold with guys like that could be potential league winners. And I think that's exactly what kind of Bill Watson fits.
It's hard to bake in upside case on these rookies enough, right? And obviously you have a base projection and then you start weighting their upside case. And so for someone like Christian Watson, we have his upside case weighted more, but it's still hard to get him really high. We have him 115th overall right now, wide receiver 53. I could see him absolutely smashing that, but it's hard. It's hard with these rookies. I think I know you do projections. How do you do layering in ceiling outcomes?
Same thing. And he comes in 55th in my projection. So we're in the same sort of area. The thing is, once you get to a point, and this comes naturally when you're drafting, you get to a point where you're like, all right, I have my starters done. And then you get to guys like, maybe Allen Robinson, Christian Kirk, Jacoby Myers, Russell Gage. And you look at those guys and then you see, Christian Watson or a Skyy Moore, and you think, all right, well, that guy's probably going to be solid. And, a Gage I could put in my flex, especially early in the season, maybe a wide receiver 3, or, I know that guy's a cap ceiling, maybe I go for the home run pick. Yeah. Again, once you're secure with your lineup, I have no problem digging down a little bit further down the list. A guy that might have a lower projection, but has a higher ceiling. And sometimes I project that too. We use that in some of our tools, ceiling and floor. But it's always one of the trickiest part of handling the second half of your draft. So some of it's subjective, some of it's just instinct while you're drafting. But I think that's the main difference, right, between projections and rankings. I get that question all the time: is why are they not just sorted by projection? Yeah. Well, you get to a certain point where you have to factor in that high ceiling, and that's where you move up guys like that.
You mentioned Skyy Moore. We know very well what the Chiefs scheme, I think, is going to look like. I think this year the difference is going to be more balanced, whereas before it was 40%, 50% of targets were going to Kelsey and Tyreek. Kelsey is getting a little bit older. Tyreek is gone. I think we'll see a much flatter target tree. But just how do you think Skyy Moore fits into this scheme? What does his skills look like with Patrick Mahomes?
Yeah, I think these guys are going to be kind of put together, Watson and Moore, kind of throughout the offseason. I know in my head, I kind of just throw them together all the time and just immediately think of the other one when I'm talking about the first guy. So, look, I think what's interesting about Moore is that, obviously good hands, fast, reliable. But he also spent a lot of time just lining up all over the field, right? At Western Michigan, was heavily targeted, never dropped the ball. Like, it fits this offense. Andy Reid never put Tyreek Hill in the same place. He was always moved around the field. And he likes to do that with all his guys, Mecole Hardman, whoever it may be. MVS is going to do the same thing. You're gonna see it with this entire group. So, like the fit a lot. I think he's a player I like coming into the process. Again, I don't get too carried away with that, because you should listen to what 32 NFL teams are telling you. And he was a late second round pick, not like a first rounder, not a fifth rounder, but treat him as a late second round pick. But again, it's the same thing with Watson. I won't repeat the whole spiel, but it's a wide open depth chart in a super pass heavy, extremely high scoring, productive offense with an elite quarterback. I mean, if he steps in there and is the real deal, again, potential league winner, we'll see what his ADP is, but if you get him in the middle rounds and he's a wide receiver too, that's huge for your team, obviously. So definitely a guy, same kind of ballpark that I'll be looking at in the middle rounds. Just love the opportunity here.
Oh, see, I think Skyy Moore's landing spot is way better than Christian Watson's, because I think the Packers actually go really run heavy. I mean, if I'm the Packers here and I'm looking at my depth chart, I'm going to try to play slow. They've tried to play slow. And the best parts of my team are Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon, And so I think that the pass rate over expectation for the Chiefs will be way higher than it will be for the Packers. So I definitely prefer Skyy Moore to Christian Watson, but yeah, I mean, both of them certainly have a big ceiling case for sure.
Yeah, well, look, the Chiefs will be way pass heavier than the Packers, most likely, just because that's a history of Andy Reid, and that's what we've seen with Mahomes. But the Packers have also been, I don't think they've ever been run first with Rodgers. I mean, they've been, seventh pass heaviest the last 4 years or something like that. I expect something similar this year. I don't think it'll change much just because of one man, right? The quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, wants to throw the ball. Yeah. They're going to throw the ball. They do move slow, I will give you that. Compared to other offenses, but I still think they'll throw the ball plenty. And if Watson's the guy, look out. But don't get me wrong, though. I hear you. I totally hear what you're saying. Better offense for fantasy production in Kansas City.
Yeah, actually, you're right. We have Packers fourth in pass rate over expectation last year. Kansas City was first, then Tampa, then Buffalo, then Packers fourth in pass rate over expectation last year. I was just getting tilted watching them play so freaking slow last year. Okay. We only have about 5 minutes here. Let's go quickly through these running backs. The Jets land Breece Hall. I think it's a pretty good landing spot. However, Michael Carter showed he can play last year. What do you think about this spot for Breece Hall?
Yeah, you kind of nailed it on the head. I don't think Michael Carter completely disappears. I was out on him last year in drafts. I thought he was overdrafted in season long, and he was actually reached on quite a bit in Dynasty, I felt. But, he was good. He played pretty well, even when he was handled a big workload. They obviously don't want him being a 20 touch guy, but can he be a guy that handles a few carries and maybe takes a slight edge in passing situations? Yeah, I think that's a possibility, especially because Breece Hall is very young, and they might bring him along a little bit slowly and have more of a committee, at least early on. But at the same time, could he be Nyheim Hines if Breece Hall is a star player, like maybe not Jonathan Taylor, but certainly a star? Yeah, that's possible as well. So, I weigh both of those things. I think at the end of the day, Hall will be fine. I think he'll be not maybe the RB1 he might have been if he went to, say, Houston or Atlanta, where he would clearly be the feature back. But with the Jets, I still think there's enough here for him to be an RB2 right out of the gate. So, I mentioned Zeke at the top. I'd take him over Zeke. Right here out of the gate this year. I don't think that's a bold take by any means.
Cowboys fan 84632 on Twitter is not going to like that.
No, they're already coming after me.
Speaking of Cowboys fan, how about Seahawks? And there's a lot of people. We have a really low projection on Kenneth Walker. We have him low in our rankings. We're just like way lower than the market on Kenneth Walker by a wide margin. In part, we don't expect Chris Carson to be back, but in part because of Rashad Penny, in part because of the quarterback play, in part because we just think this team is a train wreck with no plan whatsoever. So not the best landing spot in my opinion for Kenneth Walker. What do you think of it for Kenneth Walker?
Yeah, one of the widest possible, outcomes, I think, for this season, because if Rashad Penny actually holds up for once, and Chris Carson does come back and play, Walker might not play at all. Might get a carry here or there. We know he's not, super involved in the passing game. There's a ways to go there at least. But on the other hand, if Carson's not there and Penny gets hurt again, Walker could have what this, Pete Carroll, man, he's not afraid to run the ball. He might have 280 carries this season and 30 targets, so and honestly, he'd be an every week RB2, no doubt about it. So, but I hear you, he's going to have an interesting ADP. If I'm in the later rounds and he's sitting there and I can throw him on my bench, considering the durability issues in that backfield, I'm totally fine with that. But if people start treating him like he's going to start or play a sizable role and he's going in even the middle rounds, like, 8th, 9th round, it's going to be too rich for me. So he's just one of them guys we have to kind of wait and see on, but a very wide range of outcomes for sure.
Before we get out of here, I just wanted to highlight a couple guys down further who went later, who I thought got really good landing spots. First one for me would be Alex Pierce landing with the Colts. I think Matt Ryan is going to be fine. I really like Michael Pittman, but there's not a lot of competition for Alex Pierce to earn targets for the Colts. The second one, Evan and I have talked about already. I mean, you couldn't draw up a better landing spot, in my opinion, for James Cook to the Bills. They're desperately looking for pass catching help behind Devin Singletary. They tried to sign J.D. McKissick. They couldn't. They settle, quote unquote, settle for James Cook, who's a pretty explosive player. They get him at 63rd overall, catch passes and score touchdowns on a team which is going to be throwing the ball and scoring touchdowns. So those are two that I would highlight as really good landing spots, Pierce and James Cook. Anybody else that we didn't mention that you want to highlight that you like their landing spot?
Yeah, I think there's some mid-round running backs we're going to have to monitor throughout the offseason here. Isaiah Spiller, Austin Eckler made it clear he wants a running mate in the backfield. So, Justin Jackson's gone. The other guys didn't really work out that they tried to fill in Larry Roundtree, Josh Kelly. So Isaiah Spiller, like him a lot. He's super young, but he could be the big back here and get some goal line work. And if Eckler misses time, look out. I mean, Spiller could be a must start in fantasy. Same thing with Damian Pierce in Houston. They have Marlon Mack. They have Rex Burkhead. He could be a lead back. And I'll give you one more. How about Tyler Allgeier from BYU, right? I mean, you have Cordell Patterson, who's in his 30s. You have Damian Williams, who's in his 30s. They should be backups or complementary backs. Obviously, Patterson's going to be used as a wide receiver some as well, because they have such a need there. Maybe this kid out of BYU gets an opportunity to be maybe leads his team in carries and goal line work, right? So he has to prove himself. He's a 5th round pick. Again, you want to chase the pedigree a little bit. He might just not be very good, and everything I'm saying is irrelevant, but at least keep an eye on that because there's definitely opportunity there.
I was reading from some Atlanta stuff that they want CPAT to play more wide receiver snaps this year. So that would certainly be good for Algier also. All right. We said it all on this rookie class. Mike, tell the people where they can find you on social. I can't imagine they don't know already, or where they can find all your work.
Yeah, so at Mike Clay NFL on Twitter, and all my work over, of course, at ESPN.com and the NFL fantasy and chalk section. So just got a lot of new stuff up there with the rankings and all that. We have more to come. And even an F1 pick. I'm diving into the F1 world, doing some projections. So I'm messing around with that a little bit, trying to expand a little bit. And of course, I watched the Netflix show, so I'm completely hooked now on that. But
if you guys are watching on YouTube, Mike actually has his racing simulator behind him for peak virginity. There you go.
I do. That's it. iRacing, my friends. Monday night, I'm in a league, Monday Night Racing out there there's some NASCAR guys in there, a couple drivers.
That's pretty cool.
So it's a lot of fun, but can't recommend it enough.
That is pretty cool. All right. That's going to do it. We'll be back next week as we launch our draft kit and start to get ready more and more for the 2022 NFL season. For Mike, for producer Luke, I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.